You're listening to Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. We're coming to you from the unceded traditional territories of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh nations around Vancouver, BC. I'm your host, Bernadine Fox, and this is the show that dares to change how we think about mental health. Welcome to Rethreading Madness.
When I've never been further from knowing what the hell I'm gonna do, when I can't seem to find my way under or over or through.
You're listening to Rethreading Madness on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. I'm Bernadine Fox, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Jenna Rae McWatters from Australia. Jenna was very helpful in making sure my time zones were right and that we both ended up on air at the same time. I'm not good at that stuff, but she was perfect with it. Jenna is a survivor of childhood sexual trauma, so I'm going to let people know that we are going to be talking about that. It may be triggering if you need to take a break or and come back and listen to it at another time. That's fine. Don't worry about it. I want you to do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself in this time frame. I think we're getting to a place, though, in society where talking about childhood trauma and sexual trauma shouldn't be such a huge thing anymore. God knows the world is talking about it. So welcome, Jenna.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I invited you on because of your Instagram profile and your page. It was not just talking about trauma, it was coming from a very empowered place, and I want that on this radio. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Give us a bio that we can understand who you are from.
Yeah, sure. So I suppose my advocacy work comes from a very deep personal part of me. I am very, very dedicated to really sharing with the world, but more so with survivors and victims that sort of heal in quiet, just to let them know that they're not alone, that this is very normal, and all the things that they feel and all the things that they move through, we're all feeling that too, or I'm feeling that too. And so I really want to create this safe space. So that's part of my, I suppose, the personal side of me. From a business perspective, and I suppose it ties in, I'm currently at the end part of building out a typology system that connects the mind and the body. And it's going to be called Inner World Mechanics. And so I've been spending the last 3 years building that out. And it sort of all interconnects with my advocacy work, and just helping people understand that this is very human, it's very normal, unfortunately. And to just come back to self, connect with self, I think is very important. So yeah, I spend every single day going deep, working on the business side, but also starting to become more vocal on my Instagram page as my own healing allows it.
Can you explain typology system to us?
Yeah, sure. So typology is really more of like a psychological framework that sort of places you into certain ways of either personality or the way that you think. However, as I've been working through my own journey, I found in culture there seems to be a big split between people who think from the mind and then people who think from the body. And we have this perception that they're separate, where my belief is that they're one and the same. And so that my typology system actually helps people understand their own inner mechanics and how they process information through the mind and the body. And it actually helps them create tools to actually meet themselves deeper, meet their ego, meet their shadow, but also learn how to meet their shadow from a place of deep self-compassion and understanding. Because I believe there's a lot of goodness there. I think we see the shadow as the yucky parts of us, which is true, they are, but those parts can turn into guides and be the deepest activations for us. And I think for people who have been through a lot of trauma, especially when it comes to, or not especially, but when it comes to child sexual abuse, child sex trafficking. There's a lot of stuff in our shadow that has been deeply repressed, and the world sees it as taboo as well. So we sort of go along with it. And inner world mechanics, which is what I'm creating, I hope to be able to give people the tools to meet themselves, decide who they are, how they operate, and really start stripping back all the masks and the cultural masks that they've had to wear and really meet themselves.
That sounds
Mm.
fascinating. You
Mm.
come to this through trauma, and quite serious childhood trauma. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So from the ages of about 14 to 16, I was a victim or a survivor of child sex trafficking. So I fell into, I suppose, what a lot of people think is sex work, but I now understand that that's not what it is. I was severely groomed by a lot of older men around me and fell into a little syndicate of girls that were doing this type of work. Um, and I suppose moving, I suppose, back a little bit, finding myself there felt natural. It didn't feel unnormal. No one else was not doing this around me. I didn't really know any different. It didn't feel wrong or bad. Um, Maybe there were parts of me deep down inside that sort of understood that this was wrong, but this is what the adults were like around me, and this is what they expected of me. So I didn't really know any different. And so, yeah, a lot of what I advocate for now really is, yes, to bring awareness around this, but I truly believe that if we're going to be able to stop this, we actually have to heal ourselves as adults to actually have the tools to be able to raise better, to raise safer, more stable children in
Hmm.
safer environments.
So, of course, I'm in North America, and we are
Mm.
reeling still from the Epstein files and what has happened and
Mm.
who's been a part of that. Has the Epstein files reached into Australia? I know the people that
Mm.
have been named in it, have been identified in it, do reach into different countries, and I don't know whether or not that's been true in Epstein files yet in Australia.
I think over here in Australia and New Zealand, and I say this with so much self-compassion, is we have what is called tall poppy syndrome. And what tall poppy syndrome is if one poppy grows taller than the rest of them, it gets cut down.
Mm,
And we do have a lot of repression when it comes to drug and alcohol abuse, especially inside, because we do have very strong Indigenous cultures here in Australia and New Zealand as well. And so there's just so much repression, a lot of addiction. And I feel like we're not as far. And I feel like, though, I'm seeing online a lot of women saying to speak up a lot more rawly about their experiences. I do feel that we are behind, unfortunately.
mm,
Um, though there are people speaking up, but in terms of the Epstein files, it is definitely felt here. It definitely, I feel, planted seeds in me to speak up more, to recognize myself in those girls.
mm-hmm.
Um, because for a long time, I didn't think that I was abused.
Right.
I believed that I was completely in control. And seeing that mirror my life was confronting, but what I needed. And so I believe it is making a big impact. I feel like we'll feel the ripple effects a little bit later on in the years to come, though. Yeah, it's just something that happens over here. It's an Australia and New Zealand thing. Anyone who's from any those countries that are hearing me will understand. I do feel like there's a lot of movement here, though. I really do. And that's just part of the struggle is facing people who, you know, they don't want you to speak up, or there's just like the repression or a lot of of the collective being unhealed and still in that victim state instead of that more open, receptive state. And I think it's just going to take a lot more people speaking up and being real and honest about their experience from a place of their own healing
Mm-hmm.
that will allow people to be a lot more open to hearing it, because I feel when you share uh, these type of topics, child sexual abuse, child sex trafficking, child survival sex, or anything in relation to this, there's a lot of anger and frustration, especially because what I've noticed, even on my platform, is that there's a lot of misunderstanding that I'm placing the blame on to men, or I'm placing the blame onto other people, when I'm just sharing my experience. I'm just sharing what happened to me. I believe that healing has to be done everywhere for everybody. It's not as simple as men are the men are the problem.
Mm-hmm.
They're a part of the problem, but for me, I try and look at, okay, where's this all stemming from? Because everyone does something for a reason, and there is never, ever, ever an excuse for what happened to me. And I know that I'm a victim now, and I understand that. Um, but I feel that there's deeper healing in all collectives that we need to do to actually come to more of a harmonious state, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
Yes, of course it does.
Yeah.
You made a distinction, I think, between child trafficking and child survival sex.
Yeah, so I've been a victim of both. Um, I suppose that's very complex, because what you could probably say that it is just child sex trafficking. Um, but I've been in spaces where I've obviously allowed myself to be abused, or being put myself in those situations, because in my mind I believed I needed somewhere to live, I
Mm-hmm.
needed money, and I needed food. But now as an adult, when I look back at that, I know that I was never in control, and I didn't know what I was doing. And I was actually being groomed. And I understand that now. And then
Mm-hmm.
there were stretches of my younger years where I was actively getting paid for what was happening to me. And it wasn't anything massive. It was $50, a bottle of moonshine, a packet of cigarettes. But then there was also times where it was nothing. It was just, I could be walking down the street at the age of 14, and, at the amount of men, and I don't think people realize this, that stop and try and get me in their car, it would blow people's minds. It's not a the random man. It's so common. Men would stop and ask me if I'm okay, and they would put on this father figure, but then I would be end up getting abused in the backseat of their car anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then they would drop me at a petrol station, or drop me somewhere, and it was, yeah, so I suppose there is a difference, but they are also so deeply interconnected at the same time. I suppose it's what you resonate with it. At the end of the day, it's still all equally, abusive. There's no,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, deep
Absolutely.
distinction. Mm.
Of course, people are going to ask, where were your parents?
Yeah, so I ran away from home when I was 14 years old. I went back maybe once for a few stints, but then by then I was so out of control that my parents just I couldn't coexist with them in the same vicinity without, big fights breaking out. I grew up in quite an abusive home. Um, my dad was very abusive, physically to me and my sister, but also very physically, sexually abusive to my mum. I grew up in quite a dangerous space, parties, a lot of sexual abuse happening around me, a lot of alcohol, a lot of drugs. My house when I was younger was the druggy house. It was where everyone came to get their drugs. It was the party house. My mum was very disconnected from me. I didn't really have her present in my life, and I feel my mum, who I love so deeply, she also had a really hard upbringing. And I, maybe being the oldest child, I just, I copped it. I copped it from her, in all ways that you could demean a little girl, is where my relationship with my mum landed when I was younger. My dad would beat my mum severely. Um, the things I've seen my dad do to my mum, still, it I still can't fathom that. Um, and so coming from that type of childhood, it really messed with me psychologically, deeply messed with me. I didn't understand boundaries. I didn't understand love. I didn't understand love separate to violence. Um, and it really, yeah, it messed me up deeply as a child. And so my parents were big survivors, and they raised me in that.
I find that this idea that of not understanding love, and I think that's really an important thing to talk about when you are a
Mm.
child who's come out of deep trauma, within your family. You your understanding of love is completely messed with, and you end up in adulthood. You can walk right by people who love you because you have no idea that that's what they're doing. It just isn't making sense. It's not landing. It's like you don't have receptors in your brain that say, yes, that's love. And so we end up gravitating, excuse me, gravitating towards things that are harmful because that's what we know. That's what was normalized for us. So it's an important thing to talk about how,
Mhm.
I think people think that if you just love a child who's gone through that, that's going to make all the difference. And of course it does, but that doesn't mean that child is going to even be able to recognize that that's what that is.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I have such a big soft spot for teenage girls. I love sitting down and talking to them, and listening to them, and maybe it's part of my own healing that I just tend to gravitate to young girls that have been through quite a lot. And I find with a lot of the girls that I do sit with and do talk to, the one thing I notice is that they just want to be seen,
Hmm.
um, and understood without being controlled is one thing I notice with the girls that I sit with, to not be controlled but to be understood and seen. And I feel when I reflect back on myself as a teenager, because I was absolutely not present while also being so in tune with my instincts. I was super chaotic. And I look back and I'm like, at that point, I probably wouldn't have been able to be helped. And the only person that was ever really going to help me at that point was going to be myself,
Mm.
because the trauma was still so raw and so real. And my brain was still so severely damaged by being physically abused, in my childhood home, and witnessing extreme acts of violence, that there's really nothing a rational person could have said to me then. I would end up in homes, with people that I would sit at the dinner table with them, and I could tell that they had the best like intent with me to try and make me feel safe, and to try and look after me, because my dad was in hospital because he got stabbed, or and I wasn't allowed at my mum's because my parents didn't get along and stuff like that. So I don't have to go to like these, I don't know, the foster homes, like halfway foster homes. And I could tell the people there wanted to help me, but I just felt so indifferent towards them. It was
Mm.
almost like they were the enemy.
Hmm.
That's how it felt, because I grew up with my father who didn't like anyone, obviously that were doing well or healthy and healed, I suppose. It must have triggered something within him. And so normal, stabilized people that were doing well, like that was bad, that was wrong. And they felt, when I think about it now, I'm like, they felt like the enemy. And I would run away from every single place I got put into, I ran away from.
Mm. We just need to take a little break, Jenna, but stay with us, folks. We're going to come back and continue this incredible conversation with Jenna. We'll be right back.
Eoch Tanuyap, Quiget Yuans, Quiensna. Hi, everybody. My name is Quiget Yuans. I'm a member of the Squamish Nation and the Yagalanas clan of the Haida Nation. You're listening to Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. We live, work, play, and broadcast from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations.
You're listening to Rethreading Madness on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. I'm Bernadine Fox, and I'm speaking with Jenna Rae McWatters from Australia, talking about her experience of being trafficked as a child and what that's left her with and where she is now. One of the things that you talk about, Jenna, is very clearly is that you weren't a child prostitute or you weren't a child a child sex worker. You were being trafficked, you were being harmed. And it's such a weird thing that we have to say, but with the Epstein files going on, we see it all the time. People saying these young adult women, but really they were 16 or 14, just like you. And those people are not adults. They are children, and they are protected by the law here in that you cannot consent to sex in that way. So we just wanted to talk a little bit about that and the work that you're doing around that. One of the things that you have mentioned in your Instagram post is the concept of hypersexuality. Can you talk a little bit about what that is? It's not something they talk about a lot up here in North America. So I really want to be clear about what it is and where you're coming from with it.
Yeah, sure. So I can only share what it means for me and my experience, because I feel like hypersexuality is has a lot of forms to it. So I can only share my experience. But for me, it was the constant seeking out of stimulus, the
Mm-hmm.
constant seeking out of if I be really raw and open, it stems from having to listen to my mum be raped by my father for a lot of the time. And I feel that that's actually where it all stemmed from for me, was getting really confused about what sex was, because it came with violence. And I suppose because as a young girl, my brain was so severely damaged, my survival instincts had all started to mesh together. And I believe that I was trying to, now as an adult, when I look at that young girl, she was trying to make sense of it. And when I was going through my addiction to sex or hypersexuality, it wasn't for sex, it was to almost replay my childhood. And that might be really uncomfortable for people to hear, but I really, really, really struggled in my childhood home, and it left me quite psychologically damaged. And seeking sex out was actually a form of me being belittled as well.
Mm-hmm.
So addicted to being abused, addicted to being belittled, probably by men that really reminded me of my father. And I've had to really sit with the shame of that and what that meant. So whenever I struggled in life, it was sex that was going to fix it.
Right.
Whenever I felt overstimulated, it was sex that was going to fix it. It was the intensity of it. It really did something to my nervous system. It activated my nervous system. It made me feel. It made me really start bringing up all of those deeper, darker emotions that I wasn't consciously processing. And it's not until I've actually been able to look back at as a woman now, as an older woman, and realize all of this, it was definitely tied to a lot of taboo, unspoken, psychological mess that was in my mind. It really had nothing to do with the men. It had all to do with how I perceived myself,
Mhm.
my
Yeah.
childhood. I was trying to understand.
Absolutely. And if you took sex out of that story you just said and how you recounted it, and we just talk about reenactment or reenacting trauma, but we leave the sex out, every psychologist in the world would go, of course, that makes absolute sense. Every
Mm.
person on the planet would say, of course, that makes absolute sense because we reenact our trauma all the time. We pick the same people, we go through the same life scripts, yada yada. But the moment you add sex to it, like you're saying, it becomes taboo and it somehow changes it so that people aren't able to cope in the same way with understanding it. This hard question, sorry, but were you sexually traumatized as a child before you were being trafficked?
So when I grew up, so the answer is yes. When I grew up, and I do have to be mindful when I say this because I am speaking of other people,
Mhm.
but yes, I was by close family members. Um, Also, because sex was such a open topic, the children in my family, we didn't really like have boundaries, so we were kind of doing things to each other. And I think people don't talk enough about sexual abuse that happens between children.
No, they don't. They do not talk
Um,
about that practically at all.
yeah,
So,
yeah. And so that was a very lived experience for, I feel, all of us kids. And so that was actually my first experience of sexual abuse was from family members that were of similar age to me.
hmm,
Um, my father never touched me. And I think that was something that I really was, and this might not make sense to people, but I carried for a long time that there must be something inherently broken with me because my dad never fits touched me in a sexual way. But growing up with my dad, he was very open sexually about his life with me. And I was learning things from my dad about private areas and what he would do to women from like the age of 5. Um, and so, on top of that, my uncle went to jail for abusing his daughter very, very intimately, which really confused me even more. The amount of sexual abuse that was actually happening within my family was so significant um, that it was just almost like normal.
that's what it sounds like.
Um,
It sounds like it was
yeah,
normalized within the family, and for you to then be, exploited by other men outside your family in a trafficking situation, that would feel just as normal on some level, I would think. Am I wrong or right, or am I out in
no,
left field?
100%. No, no, that's 100%. It was, I feel me trying to understand it. And there have been times where I have told men to leave me alone. So I was about 10 and my mum was, so a lot of sexual harassment from my mum's partners. Nothing ever went further, unfortunately, but I was older. Unfortunately, there was other women, young girls in my family that did get sexually abused by these men. Um, but they did try with me. And I remember lying on the floor watching TV and an old partner of my mum's stood over me and I went to try and move because I was on my tummy and he locked his legs around me and I just knew I knew I knew what was going to happen. And I thank God for my courage in that moment. And I just turned around and I looked at him and I said, if you touch me, I'm going to tell my dad. Like, I said it so loudly at him. And that's the thing that I've always struggled with is I've never been a girl with a quiet voice. I've never been afraid of what I should be afraid of. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've had to really work with the more vulnerable parts of me, because for so long I believed like, no, I was never abused. This is my belief for so much of my life. I've never been raped. I've never been sexually abused. I am strong, and it was my choice. But deep down inside, I carried a lot of shame, which thank God I found a little keyhole to come back to myself. Um, but yeah, sexual abuse, sexualization, sex and violence was just a part of my household, a part of my extended family. And so you couldn't really, I suppose, escape it. You couldn't, it was just a part of life. I wouldn't know any different.
No. And I don't think you're alone in that idea of having come through what you came through and still trying to say, none of that ever happened to me. I was never sexually assaulted. I was always in control. I mean, that, given your childhood, Jenna, that would be a way of protecting your psyche, of protecting your sense of I'm going to be okay. Even embracing sexuality in the face of trauma could be seen as a way of empowering yourself in that moment to survive that moment. Am I making
Oh
sense?
yeah. No, yeah, that makes 100%. Um, for so long, I was like, that never happened to me. I was never groomed. I was extremely smart. I was a street smart kid, and I really believed this. And I've had to do a lot of work. And I'm a big lover of parts therapy. It's a big foundation that's actually helped me with my CPTSD.
Hmm.
Um, but I really worked with the part of me that was a victim, and I've really learned to embrace her and advocate for her. And I have no resistance now to say I am a survivor, but I was also a victim. And I don't see that as being weak. I see that as advocating for the young girl within me that didn't have the childhood she deserved and didn't have anyone ever step in and remove me from that. And now I get to, advocate for that part of me and allow her to take a back seat and not have to protect me in her ways that she was anymore. She just gets to be a child. But that's something that I really is really big for me in my advocacy work is victim isn't a bad word. It doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you moany. It doesn't make you, oh, here we go, as a victim mindset. Oh, it's not that. We were just children,
Hmm.
and we deserve to self advocate for ourselves now.
It is funny how it's not funny. I take that back. It's actually shocking how the word victim becomes something that elicits shame for people when you
Mm.
haven't done anything, and it, in some ways, really is sort of a screaming billboard about how we pathologize trauma, and
Mm.
how we take people who've been traumatized and then say you have a mental health challenge because you've been traumatized, and somehow the offender in that equation ends up being not held accountable in the same way. It
Mm.
seems to me that people who are victimized are the ones who end up bearing the responsibility of it so many times. You mentioned that you were being shamed for what happened to you, and I want to ask, who is shaming you? I'm not suggesting you start naming people necessarily, but in terms of the different players in our society, which are the people that are shaming you? Where are they coming from?
Yeah. So if I think about right now, when I took this leap of faith to start posting online, like the way that I am, which is I try and be as raw as I can and respectful at the same time. I find that a large group it is men that tend to really attack me and shame me, and I'm not a believer in saying that, oh, okay, all men are bad, though that's a very complex conversation, probably not for this, that's a big conversation, but it is mostly men that shame me for being a hoe, for, spreading my legs, for not doing better, for making bad choices. I had one comment tell me that I child trafficked myself.
Mm.
And what I gain I had to turn off one of the comments on one of my videos because it found its way to the wrong side of the lithogram. And it was the reason why I turned it off is because one, I have to be able to look after my own mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as people say, oh, you've got to learn how to, you know, not let it affect you. I refuse to repress. And so I was like, no, this is affecting me. So I muted it. But when I sat back and looked at all the comments, what I generally see is a lot of people who have been victimized in their own way, whether it's through sexual abuse themselves, through society, through their own trauma. And I'm not saying it's okay for how they talk, it's not. But I just see the deeper root of things is that there's just so much disconnection from our inner world.
Mm-hmm.
And so as they're projecting shame onto me, I'm very aware that it's actually their shame.
Right.
But because I carry shame within myself, it's now activating my own shame.
Mm-hmm.
And what I realize in that moment is that it's not my responsibility to teach these people a lesson. They're clearly already learning something from me because I've activated them.
Yeah.
But they have activated shame in me, and that's where I do the work for myself.
Yeah.
And that's where I get to, be self-compassionate and self-nurturing to my shame and integrate my shame. And that is why I can keep turning up online and speaking from is the most grounded place I can. So,
Mm-hmm.
and
No,
there
it's
have been a
phenomenal
few
what you're
women.
doing. We just need to take a little break, Jenna. I'm sorry. I know I just interrupted you, but we just need to take a little break and we'll be right back, folks, with this incredible conversation with Jenna.
Co-op Radio 100.5 FM, Vancouver's community radio station for 50 years. With great local music, arts, public affairs, many languages, and all kinds of great stuff. Support us for our spring membership drive at www.coopradio.org and learn how to become a member today.
You're listening to Rethreading Madness on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. I'm Bernadine Fox, and I'm having a conversation with Jenna Rae McWatters from Australia about her experience of being trafficked as a child and also her advocacy that she's doing and how she's moved through this stuff. And honestly, Jenna, you've done an incredible job. It's amazing to hear you talk about where you're at right now, knowing where you come from, as you explained in the last two sections. One of the things that you were talking about was the comments and how you had to shut them off at some point, and I absolutely agree with that. But I think it is also really important that we talk about that a little bit because, what is happening on some level, and you're right, people are coming with their own projections and they probably have some history with this on some level that is propelling them to or compelling them to make these comments. But these comments are, I read some of them, they're really horrible. One of them said that it was, probably your fault because you're lying about your age, or it's voluntary abusive sex. I mean, my God, you were 14 or 16. It's unbelievable what people are saying. And one saying that whorism, which is a new word to me, is caused by childhood trauma. these are people that really truly have no compassion and are really cut off from themselves to be able to make those kinds of comments.
Yeah, and when I see that, and I won't lie, that particular post went really not my most viral, but it went viral in the wrong way.
Mm,
Um, when I take a step back and I look at that, they do lack compassion, but they lack self-compassion.
mm,
And when we have an ego that's so tightly constructed on what they are, anything that is outside of that sits in their shadow, but it controls them. And so they have these big emotional waves when they see content like mine, and then their shadow takes over and they're just unconsciously blah, 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 in my comment section. And I just think to myself, good, good. I'm glad. I'm glad that I'm activating you. And I hope that you see more content like this so that you become more and more activated, because whatever's going on is coming up for you for a reason, because you're not talking about me. You're just sharing your inner world with me. Horism, that's your inner world, not mine. I don't accept that. And so it's taken me a long time to get to the space where I can deeply understand people, and I have, believe it or not, a lot of self-compassion and understanding for those people, because I can't imagine what it's like to live their life.
mm,
They must be very deeply sad. And I feel a lot of these projections that I get with my comments is it's, yeah, the system, misogyny. It's so deeply embedded. I mean, you can grow up and have a perfectly beautiful life and grow up to be a misogynistic male because of the system that we live in. And it's going to take us a really, really long time to decondition from all of this. And I genuinely, truly, with my whole heart, believe that self-compassion, true, genuine self-compassion is the key, because when you're able to humble to yourself and to your own ego and find pure, deep self-compassion for yourself, you can see your pain in other people and you can
mm.
have love and boundaries. That's a big thing for me, yeah.
It is. And one of the things I say on this program a lot is that I really do believe that the most healing thing we can do for other people is simply accept them how they come, who they are. And what you're talking about is accepting some people who are really cruel to you. That is the fact that you can get there, the fact that you can look at them and see that they are truly trying to hurt you. But have compassion for them is a very grown-up thing to be able to get to, and not many people get there. Um, and I also want to say that one of the things that I like about what you're doing is that you're not, we live in a society that likes to, only with women, take us into, you're either the whore or the Madonna, right? You're either the virtuous woman who is doing whatever virtuous women do. I'm not quite sure I know what that is when I start talking, but you're the whore, you're the person that is not deemed as worthy to do anything but service other people sexually. And you're not going there in your healing. You're not somebody who is coming through that healing and somehow being, some reenacted or reconstructed virgin. You are embracing your sexuality and you use it in terms of how you talk about this stuff in your healing. And I'm hoping that you can talk a little bit about how you got there.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. Thank you so much for saying that, because, I was pondering on this as I was writing some content the other day, actually exactly about this, that the way that I heal my hypersexuality is not to now try and become the archetype of innocence or the archetype of purity. Because one thing about feminine energy, I suppose, if we're talking about healing that part of ourselves, is that I see feminine energy as like the grass, the wind, the ocean. You know, we're all different aspects, and we're all of them all together. We can be the ocean and we can be a blade of grass. You know, it's learning that we have the capacity to be all. And I am so done trying to fit myself into boxes. If I'm really going to heal myself, I have to accept I'm all things. And it's not been easy because it means that I've had to really let go of who I am, right? Like, I am this, I am that. I can be this and I can be that. I have the capacity to be everything. And that's a lot of the work that I've been doing. That's helped me to, I suppose, honestly, really experience my erotic energy for myself and not for anyone else, because my dancing, my erotic energy, it's really helping me heal. It's helping me be with myself, to get in touch with myself right in my body, in my flesh and my bones. And it's like reclaiming my innocence through my erotic energy. And that might not be the path for everyone, and that's absolutely fine. But yeah, I really heal my hypersexuality, my addictions through my body, through being with my body.
I think that it goes without saying, even though I'm pretty sure people don't want me to say this on some level, but that if you have experienced sexual trauma, the only true way through that trauma is not just dealing with the trauma that happened, but also embracing the erotic, sexuality that we all have, and embracing that again, just as you are doing, right? But to truly heal from it, you have to not just deal with the trauma, but also embrace what should have been there all along.
Yeah. And the one thing that because then we have women that say, but how? Because I'm so disconnected from myself. And so what I say is, so be disconnected with yourself then.
Mm,
Sit with yourself and be disconnected, because there will come a point in time where that will change. You know, it's for a lot of the time when I first started, I felt weird to touch my face, to touch
mm,
my shoulders. It felt weird. It felt like I was being too soft. I was putting a mask on. I was trying to be something that I'm not, because my ego had pushed that part of me so deeply into my shadow. But I trusted my intuition. I trusted myself. I trusted, keep going. So I did. And I went from someone who would, do 10 minutes every night to every single night now I get down on the ground. I stretch, I do my fascia, but then I just get into my body, and I'm just really like, I stroke myself, my thighs, my every of my face, just really getting into that body. But for a long time, I felt numb. I felt nothing. I felt stupid. I thought, this is not going to work. This is not going to work. I already know, because I was so intellectual in my mind that I just thought this isn't going to work. But there was just a part of me that said, keep going, keep going. And slowly I started to form a relationship with myself. And that's when I really got to meet the parts of me. And there are times when I'm on the floor doing my somatic work where
mm.
I cry for no reason. And I don't allow my brain to try and tell me why I'm crying. All I know is that right now I'm grieving, and I don't need to know where that grief is coming from. I just grieve and I cry and let it out.
Hmm. I think we live in a society that too often is geared towards telling us what's wrong with us. And
Mm,
we take that on. And the idea of you telling people if you're disconnected, then just that's who you are. Just be disconnected in that moment. And I really love the way you trusted your own self to even if you didn't know why you needed to do it, you did it because you trusted yourself and it led you here. It's brilliant. That's wonderful. Any words of wisdom for other survivors who've been trafficked and are coming to terms with that?
I would say for me, the one thing that really leads me is that we've got to stop trying to be healed.
Mm,
Because if you're going to chase being healed, you'll be chasing it for the rest of your life. You deserve to be human and you deserve to be all. And part of being human is to have faults.
mm-hmm,
It's it's okay that you're a little bit faulty, or it's okay that you struggle to connect with people. It's okay that you have these things that you've carried from childhood that you may be needing to work through. It is completely normal, and you're allowed to be that way. You're not broken. You're just human that has lived human life, that has been a difficult human life. No one is perfectly healed, and everyone has their faults. And I know that you might think that yours are disgusting or shameful, but they're not. And you're allowed to be fully you. And fully you is absolutely amazing.
that's beautiful. Thank you, Jenna. Um, and if people want to find you, they can find you on Instagram under Jenna Rae McWatters, Waters with 2 T's and an
Yes.
MC, not an Mac, not an MAC, all one word, Jenna Rae McWatters. Thank you, Jenna, for coming and chatting with me about this really important topic. And I have no doubt that given what's happening contemporarily in our society, is triggering a lot of people. I know that's triggering a lot of people to start dealing with the ways in which they were trafficked, whether it's in an organization like Epstein created or in a family. We know that over 41%, I think, in North America, of victims of trafficking are being trafficked through their parents, through family members. And so that certainly may be on a different level than maybe you or certainly Epstein, but people are coming forward recognizing this happened to me. And it really is important to start talking about the ways that we can find our way through what happened and not have to keep it in the shadows, so to speak, and not talked about. So thank you. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on. And it was very touching. I really enjoyed this.
Oh, that's good, because I did too. Okay, we'll be right back, folks.
You're listening to 100.5 FM, CFRO, Vancouver Cooperative Radio. Programs like this are made possible by listener support and by grants from organizations such as the Central City Foundation. Thank you so much for keeping independent community radio alive.
Streetlights are bleeding through the cracks in the blind, and you're staring at the ceiling, trying to untangle your mind. The clock on the wall is the loudest thing in the room, and it feels like the walls are closing in on you too. I know how the quiet can start to scream. I know how you're trapped inside of a waking dream. Your hands are shaking, you're counting the floorboards tonight, just praying for a flicker, just a little bit of light. You carry a mountain that nobody else can see, and you're smiling for the cameras, pretending to be free. But I see the shadow that's hiding behind your eyes, and I hear the truth underneath all of your beautiful eyes. So this is a song for anyone in pain, for anyone standing out alone in the pouring rain. When the weight of the world is too heavy to hold, and your heart's turning heavy and your blood's running cold, you don't have to be brave, you don't have to be strong, you don't have to pretend that you belonged all along. Just cry if you need to, let the tears start to fall. Yeah, this is broken, a song for us all. You remember the days when your chest didn't ache before every single promise that they made started to break. Now you're walking through the crowds where you're completely alone, like a ghost in a city that you used to call home. They tell you it's easy, they tell you just breathe, but they don't see the gravity pulling at your sleeve. It's a heavy kind of sadness that settles in the bone, and it makes you feel like you're entirely on your own. You've been fighting a war that has no end in sight. You're waking up in the morning just to dread the night, and you're tired, oh God, I know that you're tired of trying to stoke a flame when you've run out of fire. Yeah, this is a song for anyone in pain, for anyone standing out alone in the pouring rain. When the weight of the world is too heavy to hold, and your heart's turning heavy and your blood's running cold, you don't have to be brave, you don't have to be strong, you don't have to pretend that you belonged all along. Just cry if you need to, let the tears start to fall. Yeah, this is a song for the broken, a song for us all. Swallow, but I will sit here in the dark right next to your chair, and I'll hold your hand so you know someone is there. We can scream at the sky, we can curse at the floor until our throats are all raw and we can't anymore, because pain isn't something you just wash away. It's a storm you gotta sit through day after day, but you are still breathing, you are still here through the terror, the doubt, and the paralyzing fear. You're still here. Don't let go. Yeah. Oh, this is a song for anyone in pain, for anyone standing out alone in the pouring rain. When the weight of the world is too heavy to hold, and your heart's turning heavy and your blood's running cold, you don't have to be brave, you don't have to be strong, you don't have to pretend that you belonged all along. Just cry if you need to, let the tears start to fall. Yeah, this is a song for the broken, a song for us all. So let the rain fall down on your face. You don't have to win every single race. The room is getting quiet again. The storm is slowing down, my friend. You're not alone in the dark tonight. We're just waiting for the morning light. Yeah, we're just waiting for the light.
You're listening to Rethreading Madness on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. I'm Bernadine Fox, and that's our show. My thanks to Jenna Rae McWatters for coming to have this particular conversation with me. My goodness, such honesty and compassion from someone who experienced such a traumatic childhood. Music today was by Sherry Ulrich and Tom O'Dell. And to you, our listeners, thank you for joining us today. Stay safe out there. You've just listened to Rethreading Madness, where we dare to change how we think about mental health. We air live on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM, every Tuesday at 5 p.m. or online at coopradio.org. If you have questions or feedback about this program, or want to share your story, or have something to say to us, we want to hear from you. You can reach us by email, rethreadingmadness@coopradio.org. This is Bernadine Fox. We'll be back next week. Until then.